Well, Woodsy is leading as we've got a spinner. Very nice 360 that he caught there. Oh, he's gone really early. Wow. I wonder if that's going to get full started because the rest of the field was not close whatsoever.
Who's going to be last on the brakes? Leclerc has that inside line. Through goes Hamilton. Unbelievable stuff.
Round 2 of Club 100 Sprints for 2025 has been and gone, and this time we were at GYG or Glenagore. I hope I said that right, otherwise my Welsh ancestors would disown me. This was my first time coming to North Wales and I had no idea what to expect. This track looks absolutely amazing with a massive uphill straight, some long sweeping bends and a really technical final sector. I didn't know what track to compare it to on the calendar and it's too far away to go and check it out for a small practice or anything like that. So I was going into this completely blind, and if you haven't watched my last video on round 1 at Butmore Park, we had a fantastic first round to the season. Whilst yes, we didn't have the best heats in the world, dropping a few points because of it, we finished the B final P2 in the super heavyweight class, getting our first podium that wasn't actually a podium, and went into round 2 P3 in the championship. So I had to try and keep up that momentum, but it was going to be tough, but I was excited for the challenge. This was also being filmed as well, so that was extra motivation to do well. Spoiler alert, I don't appear much on the stream, so don't look out for any big overtakes on the stream or anything like that, unfortunately. But before we dive into the test and then how all of the races went, make sure you like and subscribe if you do enjoy this video at all. And also, here's my first interview with the lovely team at Alpha Live for me to cringe at, but for you to also see how I come across on camera and my goals for the round.
Oh, we've got a family over here as well. Hello there, what's your name?
Matt Salmon.
Matt, we were talking to another Matt. Are you going to be quicker than our other Matt?
I'm super heavyweight, so I don't know where he sits, but I hope to be.
Okay, well best of luck for that. Got the family here as well?
Yeah, we went camping since Friday, so we've spent the night in North Wales. It's really nice, so yeah.
So you've got yourself acclimatised to Wales and you're just ready to go?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're one of the natives now.
Have you ever been to GYG before?
No, first time.
Oh, okay. Done any practice or anything, or is it going to go, straight out into the first heat?
I'm doing about 10-minute practice, and then we're just going to wing it and hope for the best.
That's the proper way of doing it, though.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, this track looks so much fun. I'm trying to memorise it as I just watch, but it looks so much fun. I'm excited to just go, really.
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. You're going to love it. Is this your first season in Club 100?
First full season. I've done odd races here and there, but this is the first full one I'm doing, yeah.
And what's the kind of goals for today's races?
Well, in Butmore we got P2 in super heavyweight, so and we're third in the championship, so hoping to keep that momentum and fight for the top 3, really. So,
Matt, thank you for talking to us and best of luck.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
So with that absolutely horrible interview out of the way, let's get into the short bit of practice to talk through about how I felt it was going and what I thought of the track. I want to say a big shout out to Tom Edwards, a good friend of mine who was kind enough to share his test session with me. He went out first because, I'll be completely honest, it had been raining the day before and I really did not want to try and learn a track in 15 minutes when it was still wet or damp still. But luckily for both of us, this track was completely bone dry as it was a beautiful day today and quite hot by the time we got to the races. Coming out of the pit, I'd watched some track guides, but I couldn't for the life of me remember the third sector of this track, and that was clear in my timings. I almost lost it on the uphill bend when I first came out of the pits. I watched people almost taking each other out and I kept clipping the curb going into the final bend, which was costing me so much time, but I just kept doing it. I just completely forgot it was there and I kept like whacking into it and it was costing me so much time. But overall it was a very messy session and I was just really slow, which was sort of understandable as I'd never been there before. But by the end of the test I was getting there, but still learning and far off from the pace of my competitors in the super heavyweight class. This bend, for example, I kept braking at, but as the weekend went on I realised I needed to carry the speed through it, but early on this was something I definitely did not realise. I also personally felt the kart was slow, but that's just an excuse on my end, and I'm sure others were absolutely rapid with it. I just felt like the acceleration was taking ages to get up to full speed, but again, that might be the fact that I am 103 kilograms with all of my race gear on. Heavier than Donald Trump, apparently, according to his medical assessment, so take that what you will. But yeah, not much to say about testing. I was just getting to grips with this amazing track, and let me know what you think of my lines and everything. I'm always willing to learn, and if you're noticing anything during this video about what I can do differently, do not hesitate to leave a comment. It will matter massively help me in the future. But by the end of this session, I didn't really check on my lap times as I was undergoing Tom's racing number and name, and his fastest lap was much earlier than mine. But again, I just wanted to get out there and learn what's going on. My first race was going to be Heat 2, and here I was starting from P13, so luckily not thrown massively into the deep end, starting on pole or anything like that. This time I could just try and settle in the middle and take opportunities when they come up, whilst also learning from those around me. I had a couple of super heavyweights in front of me, so it was just trying to beat them or be of an equal pace at least, and ultimately not drop back to the back of the grid and finish last. So here we go, race 1 starting P13.
To the 4th row, it's Kieran Hyde-Moody and Adam Nava. Row 5 is Jason Kirkham and Jake Hicklin. Row 6 is Vinod Hirani and William Woods. Moving on to the 7th row of the grid, then it's Matt Salmon and Adam Britton. Row 8 is Anwar Berrowell-Smith and Joe Wright. Row 9 being Phil Jackson and Ben Niblett, completing our 18-car grid here for Heat 2.
I knew immediately going into this race that staying P13 was going to be tough because Anwar Berrowell-Smith was directly behind me and he was going to charge to the front almost immediately in this race. But like with Kurt Holmes in Buckmore Park, I was kind of hoping he would clear a path and open some parts for me to overtake the people in front, or specifically the super heavyweights in front of me. Going into the warm-up laps, however, I was immediately overtaken and noticed I was dropping off of the others really quickly, and that kind of worried me. Clearly the 15 minutes practice wasn't enough and I was at least 1 to 2 seconds a lap slower. Braking was too early and turning points were not good either, as I was opening the door far too often, especially going into sector 3. Regardless, it was practice and I hoped the race would just go better. As we all lined up to get ready, we got the all clear after going around twice, and as the lights went green, we get a terrible start as my car and the other super heavyweights car in front of us just gets left behind as my foot is flat to the floor, but no top speed is kicking in. I also get some terrible understeer going into the flat out turn 1, which forces me wide and loses me a ton of time. I guess I didn't warm up the tyres enough on the warm-up laps and formation lap, but now we've already lost our position to Anwar, as I get a bit of luck as the super heavyweight goes onto the grass and also loses a ton of speed, and Anwar also punts him off the racing line. I lose another position but try to get it back, but get an awful exit, and by this point I believe I am second to last or third to last, so a terrible introduction to racing at GYG. Two drivers to the right of us decide that they love the look of the green Welsh grass, so they go for a closer look as we gain 2 positions because of it as they come back onto the track, losing tons of speed. But we catch the pack again going into sector 3 and I notice I am faster than this guy in front. But going for an overtake was going to be pretty tough as we lose yet another position to Adam Britton going into the main straight, which forces us back massively. I catch the guy in front again, however, but have a messy-ish last sector, and once again we are stuck directly behind him going up the main straight, but someone goes massively wide here going into the barrier, which slows the guy in front down, which gives me an opportunity to get around him, but somehow another guy goes around me also, so whilst I gained a place, I lost another immediately. I do notice that I seem to be a bit faster in the last sector though, as I rock up to the back of the guy in front, and as the two squabble in front of me, I see an opportunity to use the full speed and get around another car which lost speed after hitting the class 1 coming through. The goal was now to try and follow the C1 in front of me and get the super heavyweight who was just in front of them, but I lose a ton of time in the last sector and witness them way up in front cutting some grass with their lovely Rotax lawnmower.
Yeah, just cutting some grass here.
As those two battle it out, the C1 gets in front of our super heavyweight rival, and that allows us to catch up a bit. And now I've got to try and find a way around him, but according to the lap times we are similar in pace, with me being about 1/10 faster at times. I made quite a few mistakes throughout the laps, but a lot of the time, again in the last sector, I catch up to him. But I keep clipping that curb, which slows me down as we go across the line. I try and trick him into defending on the bend at the top of the hill, but he keeps his eyes forward at all times, meaning I can't really trick him into defending, and well, I'd like to say more happens, but unfortunately this was my sight until the very end. I felt like Max Verstappen looking at the back of Gasly in Bahrain, just a brick wall with no way of getting past, but unlike Max, I didn't make any heroic move on the last lap. I was pretty happy that I made 2 overtakes this race, and I did stick with the C1 for at least a lap, but as you can see, we are miles away from the pack in front and are just sticking to ourselves, at least 5/10 off of the people in front, which I was really disappointed with. In the the end though, we started P13 and ended P14, so it wasn't the worst result ever, but that said, I did come last in class, which was really not that great, and was not going to help me going forward in my hopes of getting on the podium or getting good championship points. Lots to learn from that race, but at least I knew it was possible to gain some positions on a track that is renowned for not many overtaking spots. A big congrats to Richard Newton in this race. He was a super heavyweight and was like an absolute rocket, fighting with all of the C2s and C1s, and finished in P7 in the race. Trying to beat him was going to be a nightmare, and he was clearly the best super heavyweight of the day. It was now time for Heat 6, my second race, and this time we started P6. So this was my sort of front starting one, I guess. That said, I also started P6 in Heat 3, so yeah, it was an odd one. But I was hopeful that this race would go better in my favour and I could get some good points for the final. So here it is.
As we just wait for the grids to show up. Andy Hicklin starts on pole with Rupert Rixon alongside. William Woods is in third with Vijay Patel in fourth. Then it's Jacob Sharman and Matt Salmon completing row 3. On row
I was a bit nervous going into this heat because I was at the front and I was running high in my class, and after the pace difference in the first race I thought I was going to get absolutely swamped by people going up the hill. Coming around to the start straight, the lights went green and we get a good start, but P2 on the grid changes his mind suddenly and I slam into the back of P4, which slows us down massively as we already get overtaken, but luckily we keep it planted and stick with the front runners. I try and go on the inside into the turn, but was going to be squeezed onto the grass if I committed, and because of that I lose out and get forced onto the outside of the bend, losing a ton of positions and coming face to face with a spun kart, which I immediately get out of the way of and luckily didn't lose too much speed, or worse, slam into the front of them. It wasn't the best first lap, but it could have been much worse, as I was still running with the front pack, but another driver, I probably think Richard Newton, carried tons of speed into the right-hander and forces me wide, which slows me down massively as he goes through, also forcing his way past another driver in a move that was, well, it certainly worked and it didn't get a penalty, but there was certainly contact involved.
It could have been killed.
I tried following through, but nowhere to pass as we go onto lap 2, having such a fun full throttle up to the top bend, but you can see the clear speed difference between me and the kart in front. And going down the hill, we lose position to Joe Holmes, which I didn't realise he was behind me at all, but it was inevitable he was going to come through at some point, being a permanent front runner all the time. I catch back up with the guy in front, but get massively shoved wide by 2 fighting karts behind, which I really wasn't happy with at all, because it wasn't like I was braking too early. They just decided that that was the place for the move, but they were much faster sadly, so it was only a matter of time before they got around me.
They raced me so hard.
By this point we were all still doing okay. We lost to yet another position in the same bend because, as I mentioned earlier, I was just going too wide to set up for the following bend. But we did catch back up with the pack, so maybe this was an opportunity to gain a position or two. But like I said in the first heat, my pace just wasn't there. I couldn't work out where I was losing the time, but I would be at least 5/10 behind everyone's lap times, and it was just a bit sad to see them just disappear into the distance. My only hope by this point was that they'd fight each other so much that I'd join them once again, which is what they did, as I nearly went for a move on this guy, but there was nowhere to do it. I get a good run up the straight, but even with the toe they seem to get away from me as a guy goes wide into the top bend. I get around him, but then he has a better line going into the downhill bend and keeps the position. As I try to get around him again into the third sector, fail, and because of it lose a ton of time going into the next lap. Unfortunately, that was it until the end of the race. I stayed about the same distance from the guy in front of me and didn't get overtaken by anyone, so yeah, not fantastic, but not awful either. Started P6 and in the end got P11, so in terms of super heavyweight results, it was on the better end, but my competition was still getting those top 10 results, and I needed to get a good one in the next heat, or the B final would be extremely difficult. Luckily, I was starting P6 in the next heat once again, so maybe a second chance to get a good result.
It is going to be Steve Bosley and Gerard Moore on the first row of the grid. Jake Hicklin and Matt Jones row 2, Jordan Hawkins and Matt Salmon row 3. Moving on to
this race was an utter mess, and it all started with the first formation lap. I have no idea what happened here, and I was ready to get going immediately, but as we went around the final bend ready for the green light, our leader had already gone and built a massive gap, and quite clearly it was wrong, as the guy in front of me wearing this amazing Lotus racing suit raised his hand at the marshal, who immediately called it a false start, and just like that we had to reform and had lost 2 minutes of race time, which absolutely sucked, especially as my start was alright. to some extent. Reforming back up, however, this is where it all went wrong. Our leader was much more on it, backing up everyone, but he gets a few nudges from behind as he slows right down, getting super annoyed at the guy behind. This leads to all of us not knowing when to start or to go, as P2 is just waiting for a sign, and because of it I get slammed from behind, forcing me into the guy in front as we get such a slow start. And then I also get pushed wide out of the turn, which means people swarm all over me and I am overtaken left, right and center. We get a small bit of luck as Richard forces someone onto the grass as he goes spinning, giving us a position back, but I try carrying tons of speed and go around the outside of the bend as everyone bottlenecks up. But on the exit I get a good run, but Richard comes back in front of me and I have to take to the grass and jump the curb, which destroys my pace and back completely, allowing 2 through, and then I get forced wide into the bend at the bottom of the hill. So in the space of like 4 bends, I've had an absolute mare and I am absolutely fuming inside. But I will say, if you are new to karting or Club 100, look, I'm not experienced, but don't do this. Can you see it? Yeah, I have my hand up complaining for ages, and that just costs me as I lose focus and lose a position. It's just not worth moaning or holding your hands up during an actual race. It's happened, get on with it, you just have to deal with it. But anyway, I had to now try and get back into the race and try to get some overtakes done again, because what an awful first lap, and I had less time to actually do anything in it. I get some great exit out of these bends and go for a move on the blue suit guy here, giving him some nudges, but it doesn't work as I have to find a new spot to make the move. But I get a terrible last bend and I can't work out why, but I've dropped back massively, but blue suit guy completely misses the braking point as he goes spinning, giving us that position back, which I suppose was good, but I wanted to do at least one good overtake this weekend, and yeah, that was it, I'm afraid. Another absolutely dreadful race that was ultimately ruined by lap 1 and the awful formation laps.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
If we continued with that first lap before the restart, I think we could have had a good result, but that mess of a second one hindered us so badly, and honestly, I'm still a bit annoyed by it. I was the fastest super heavyweight out there, which I was actually surprised and really happy with, but the gap was too big to do anything with it, so it really wasn't worth it in the end. But now I had to just wait and see if we made the B final. My results were P14, P11 and P12, so pretty bang average and not great for points, especially as some of the other super heavyweights got P9s, P7s and other things like that. But thankfully we made it to the B final and started P17, which was better than Buckmore Park at least. But Richard Newton had won the super heavyweight class already as he had made the A final, which kinda sucked as none of us could fight for that win unless we reached the A final ourselves, which would be extremely difficult. So it was just P2 that was up for grabs, and if I were to achieve that, I would have to overtake Mike Bodnar, Stuart Kirk and Charlie Newman, and considering I hadn't really made any decent overtakes all weekend, I wasn't the most optimistic. But the pace from Heat 3 was promising, so I just had to see what we could do, and honestly, I think it was my best race that I've ever had.
Vijay Patel and Stuart Kirk, row 7. Charlie Newman, Rupert Rickson, row 8. And then row 9, it's Matt Salmon and Edgar Armendariz Bocanegra. Rounding out. Oh no, sorry, not quite.
Rocking up to the lights, we get a horrible start as all of the karts on the right hand side go so slowly compared to the left, and it just seemed like there was no power in those karts. We already lost a ton of positions and the gap to Charlie in front of us was much bigger than I wanted, and I really couldn't work out what had happened. But with the battling ahead, we do close the gap as I try and find an overtaking position, but don't want to risk it too early. Stuart Kirk goes massively wide here, probably going for the same move I tried in Heat 3, and we get a better exit on him and take to the outside, but he now has the inside line for the downhill section, but I use the other karts on the inside line to force him to brake early, which would allow me to brake later, and because of it I slot in front of him. So that's 1 super heavyweight out of the way, 2 to go to get the P2, or 1 to just get on the podium. Everyone brakes super early for this bend however, which gives Stuart an opportunity to go for a move again, but I have the inside line so hold him off for a little bit. Going into lap 2 I'm losing them in front because I'm still defending from those behind me, but luckily Charlie Newman is just 2 or 3 in front of me, so he's not miles off into the distance. I close the gap pretty quickly and then suddenly a rogue Jason Kirkham comes out of nowhere and that holds up the 2 in front of me. With that I carry more speed into the bends and try to get a cutback, carrying tons of speed on the outside of the bend and make a 2-in-1 overtake going into the final part of the lap, which honestly was such a satisfying move. Get that on repeat right now.
Can Perez squeeze past? They're going wheel to wheel towards Vale now. Who's going to be last on the brakes? Leclerc has that inside line. Through goes Hamilton. Unbelievable stuff. I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. So watch it.
Oh may have missed this, but during lap 2, two drivers went for a major crash in the middle of the track, which broke one of the karts completely and forced another into the pits. Unfortunately, it was Mike Bodnar again making that 2 crashes in 2 B finals, and I feel so bad for him, but for me that meant we were P3, as heartless as that sounds. So we were on the podium now, and I just needed to get Charlie so I could be top of the super heavyweights in the B final and get 2 P2s in a row. With that, I hoped that a recovering Kirkham was going to just rock up to the back of him so we could get him together. Following him through the lap, I noticed he carried tons of speed into some of the bends, so I tried to remember that going forward. The yellow flag was in the middle of the track for a bit, which did help as it bunched up of people for a few laps. There was still a gap and we needed to catch quickly, but it seemed like I was faster than Kirkham at this point, but I didn't want to battle him too much. If we couldn't catch him though, I'd have to pull the old Lando Norris and beg that he let me through. But for now, I just sat there and just reeled in the ones in front. The following lap, Charlie was caught fighting with another driver and lost a ton of speed on the main straight, allowing Kirkham to get him, which meant we were next, and now he was right there. The gap was much smaller, but I'd watched him in previous heats and he was difficult to get past, so this was going to be a real challenge. I tried varying up the lines to throw him off a bit, but could not find a way through. I just had to hope he was slow in some sectors and I could just use a better exit speed to get him. The next lap I tried to go for it again, but got too scared about taking both of us out, so sat there behind again. And by the next lap, I was literally sitting as far forward in my car as possible in the hope that that's how aerodynamics work and that my head would be able to make the move and my kart would follow like some weird Tom and Jerry cartoon. Newsflash, it didn't work at all. Again, we were stuck and it was the third sector that seemed to be my best chance of getting him, but that's so twisty, I don't know exactly where I would do it. He signaled a few times to focus forward, which is fine, but we were the super heavyweights and it was just him and me fighting for this class win, or P2, so I wasn't really going to listen. I lose some ground on him but quickly catch up again, but once again there was nowhere to get him. Luckily no one was behind me trying to get me at this time, and if there was someone, that might have cost me massively, but this was just giving me another lap to focus on getting him. Another lap went past and I tried to go on the outside, but no use. I tried to cut back, no use. It was just getting super frustrating, but there was still plenty of time and we were closer than ever before, but for some stupid reason I pulled out of his slipstream and that cost me top speed. Then again, I needed to try and shoot around him. I just wasn't able to. Some more small bumps happened going into the next lap and time was ticking. We were both leaning as far forward as possible and then it happened. He missed the braking point and shot wide. I hit the bend in the normal fashion and got on his inside going into the downhill section, and because of it I was able to brake later, and there it was. I made the move stick and we were now the top super heavyweight in the B final, and it was P2 currently. I did feel bad as he also lost about 3 places after me because he went wide, but I had to make the move. There was no other place I could do it. Going into the next lap, the traffic behind had found me and I get nudged a little by the guy behind, losing tons of speed, and I just let him through because I just wanted to finish this clean and not bring about more battles that could allow others to overtake and leave me losing multiple positions. However, he is so much slower in the second half of the lap, and that leads me to bumping him a few times, hoping he just floors it in the next lap or so. Thankfully, he pulls away and builds a bit more of a gap, but Lenny Wood, another super heavyweight, is right on my tail at this point, which was worrying me a little bit. So I was trying not to look back and just focus forward. With that, it worked and we just had a nice leisurely drive back, bringing home yet another P2 podium. And this time, we got an actual trophy from Club 100, which was so nice to receive. I also set the fastest super heavyweight time in the B final, which was a 52.047, which I was pretty happy with. I felt like I finally understood GYG, and going back there next time, I hope to get at least a 51 second at some point. But with that, round 2 was over, and like with Buckmore, the heats were pretty poor, but the final was so much fun, and I got some good overtakes going within it, which I was pretty happy with. I kind of wish I could have taken the fight to Richard Newton, but he was in another league this weekend with an incredible class win and an A final appearance, so congrats to him. But with that result, we still sit P3 in the Super Heavyweight Championship, with Mike Bodnar P2 and Richard now P1. Wilton Mill is next, which only has me and Richard going to it, at least in the championship contention, so I'm hopeful for a nice class win and my first gold trophy, as I absolutely love that track, but we'll just have to wait and see. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching. I hope it was entertaining, and do let me know if you have any tips or positive feedback, etc. I'd love to know your thoughts. As I say, Wilton is next and I hope we can get a fantastic result, but for now it's 2 of 2 podiums, each getting P2, which I'm super happy with. Leave a like like if you enjoyed this, and do subscribe if you haven't already. And until our next round, I shall see you there. Cheers again.